Welcome back to the Paseo podcast. This is Josue, the editor, and we had some technical difficulties with Zoom in this meeting, so apologies for that. If you'd like to skip to the video, you can go to video timecode 625. However, we have a great conversation in this episode, and I'm sure you will enjoy it, so please sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. And of course, thank you for checking out the Paseo podcast.
Bienvenido a todos. It is the Paseo podcast. Today is Friday, May 21st, but that doesn't really matter because it's a podcast. We're just happy you are listening to this, watching this, wherever, whenever you are, because we have a number of guests on today's episode. We have Omar Torres Kortright. He is the executive director of Segundo, Ruiz, Belvis Cultural Center here in Chicago. We also have Luis Tubens and María Luisa-Torres. They are co-creators of Raíces to Roots, production collaborative. I mean, they do a lot of stuff. Really excited to talk to all three of them today because there is a lot going on at the Cultural Center in the coming weeks. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details of Segundo Ruiz Belvis, Raíces to Roots, the 50th anniversary of the Cultural Center, I just want to welcome our guests to the show today. What's up? How are you all?
I'm good. I'm great. Thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Yes, likewise.
So let's start off with a little bit of background, though. Omar, let's start with you. What should our audience know about you?
Well, I was born in Puerto Rico, and I went to college at the University of Puerto Rico. So I came here, already graduated from college and everything. So my high school, I guess younger years before and during college were all in Puerto Rico. So that's something that not everybody knows about me because they've been seeing me in Chicago for so long. Eso quiere decir que soy más viejo de lo que la gente piensa.
Maria, what about you? What should our audience know about you?
Yeah, so my name is María Luisa-Torres. I am a dancer, a dance instructor, a dance therapist. I was born and raised here in Chicago, in Hermosa Park. I grew up in Hermosa Park, and my family is from Jayuya, in Puerto Rico, so from the montañas. And I am also the creator, artistic director, choreographer, dancer of Raíces to Roots.
Awesome. Luis, what about you? What should our audience know about you?
I'm a Chicago-born Puerto Rican poet, and I am the poet of the Raíces to Roots production.
I love learning where our guests are from, where their families are from in Puerto Rico. So if you were born here, born on the island, doesn't matter. We're all Puerto Rican. So, really curious to hear from you all. And Luis, let's just stay with you for this one. What part of Puerto Rico is your family from?
Ponce. My father's family is from Ponce, and my mother's family is from kind of all over the island, but mostly they came Rio Piedra. But every time that I go to Puerto Rico, I stay in Ponce.
Awesome. Maria, what about you?
Yeah, my grandparents are from Jayuya. And I grew up with my grandparents. They raised me. So I feel very connected to my Puerto Rican roots.
Great. All right. Omar.
Yes. So I'm from San Juan, I guess, the big metropolitan area, but specifically from Rio Piedras too. So I grew up in Rio Piedras, went to school in Miramar, by Old San Juan, very close to Old San Juan and that area in Santurce. I have had family from all over the island, but mostly we're city people. We're from Santurce. Like my family is mainly on my mom's side from Santurce, and on my dad's side from Gurabo and Mayagüez.
Oh my gosh, all over. I love the diversity of backgrounds, geographies on this call. Looking at the Chicago geography, Segundo Ruiz Belvis Cultural Center is one of the longest, I believe it's the longest Latinx serving cultural center here in the city of Chicago. Omar, what should we know about Segundo Ruiz Belvis Cultural Center? What is it?
Yeah, well, I think that the first thing that people don't know is where does the name come from and why, right? And I think it's key because the reason why it's named Segundo Ruiz Belvis was so that people would continue asking who this person was. That was the main reason. But the real reason is because it is the one of the most, if not the most important abolitionists from Puerto Rico. He died very young, fighting for independence and for the abolition of slaves. And he founded a clandestine society that would buy slave children and free them under Spanish rule. It's one of the most beautiful stories of Latin American history and one of the lesser known stories. So really an incredible man. Segundo Ruiz Belvis, there was a real purpose in naming the organization in 1971, naming it Segundo Ruiz Belvis. It was a time right after the civil rights movement, and like after everything that was happening in the 60s, we're coming into the new decade, and there was a renewed sense of a need to bring together Blacks and Latinos, and this was the perfect way to do it, in the sense that we wanted to have that camaraderie, and it was at a time when the Young Lords, the Black Panthers, all those things were happening. So Segundo Ruiz Belvis was born out of that need to bring the communities together, and some amazing people participated in the origins of that organization. And they were all activists and people that were fighting for social justice at that time.
How would you describe the needs that the Cultural Center is filling today?
The organization has evolved a lot, but it has never diverted from the original mission. And obviously that mission is very much tied to our African ancestry. So basically, I think that today is a particularly interesting time for Segundo Ruiz Belvis because of the moment in social justice and racial reckoning that we're living. I think that has, in a way, not forced us, but made us look a lot closer to the history of the organization and the role that we play. And I think that intersection between social justice issues and arts and culture is something that has always been part of the organization. And if anything, the times that we're living in right now remind us of that mission and to stay true to it. And I think that we've been successful, number one, in staying alive, because staying alive is almost, it's so difficult for an arts organization of our size, and with such a niche focus, right? So we're in a community that is disadvantaged. We are, of course, an organization that has faced multiple challenges throughout its history, but we managed to stay programming, to stay alive. And every year is really a battle to find that funding to really fund the type of programming like Raíces to Roots that we want to fund. So really, to me, the organization continues very strong in that mission to represent the arts and culture of Puerto Rico and its African ancestry, but also always with that social justice focus. And I think that right now, more than anything with the COVID-19 pandemic, I think that the organization has proven that they can be creative and that it can use art as a way to communicate messages of importance to the community. And also, just if we're in the middle of an emergency, we're going to be an arts organization, but we also respond to the emergency around us. So that's why our parking lot was a COVID testing site. That's why we're having a vaccination event tomorrow here at Ruiz Belvis. And we're primarily arts and culture, but we also are part of this community, and we have so many responsibilities with the community. I think that's our historic moment right now. It's we feel responsible. We feel the weight of the years and the people that came before us and the shoulders where we stand. And we think that we have to live up to that history. And of course, the name. I mean, what's a bigger name than Segundo Ruiz Belvis?
I'd like to shift gears a little bit to you, Luis, and you, Maria. You've touched on this a little bit, but can you give us like a high-level view of what Raíces to Roots is and the need that it's filling today?
Raíces to Roots is a theatrical production that celebrates the Chicago Puerto Rican experience through Afro-Latin dance, spoken word, and music. The really awesome thing about this production is that it is made up of an entirely Puerto Rican cast, which is really exciting for us. The overarching theme of the production is home. So the production really takes you on a journey through the actual home, the dwelling of the home, home within the community, and then home in the diaspora. And then it also invites the audience through a creative workshop so that they can connect to their own sense of home. I think that it's really fitting that we are at Segundo Ruiz Belvis, that Segundo Ruiz Belvis is our home, because, you know, it's all about celebrating our culture, about celebrating being Puerto Rican. And I think that in and of itself is an act of social justice, just being able to stand proud in our identities, especially in a society that doesn't give us a lot of voice. You know, our community faces a lot of displacement, not only here in Chicago, but on the island as well. And so for us to have a space where we can, you know, unapologetically just be us and have a place where our community can be seen and heard, I think is really special and really important and significant. And I think also for me personally, it feels very fitting and emotional to me to be at SRBCC because it's in my home. You know, I'm creating this piece about home, and it's only a few minutes away from where I grew up. So it's coming full circle, and I'm so grateful to be there.
Yeah, I second everything that Maria has said. I think that I could speak a little bit about the art of the production. We call it a theatrical production on purpose. It's not a play. It's not a spoken word performance. It's not a concert. It's a theatrical production. We're weaving together dance, music, and poetry, all to tell the story of the Puerto Rican experience in a very abstract way. You're not going to have two characters having dialogue with each other. We're not going to give you the Puerto Rican cliches that you're going to hear probably, you know, throughout, the other Puerto Rican arts. What you're going to get is a sense of what it's like to be from this diaspora, to be a Puerto Rican from Chicago, to go back and forth from the island to the city. And we're hoping that the audience can relate to this story also, too, that they don't have to be Puerto Rican in order to understand this story. You don't even have to be Latinx to understand this story, that the story of being Puerto Rican in Chicago is a story that's going to be related to people no matter where you're from across any diaspora. And if you're not getting the story through the words, then you're going to get it through the dance, or you're going to get it through the music too. And all of these elements come together to really give you this explosion, this stimulation to your senses, so that you walk away understanding in every part of your body what it's like to be from one place to another.
I might be putting you on the spot here. So you had said something I found really, really interesting. You had mentioned how, you know, the type of production that Raíces to Roots puts together. You mentioned like Puerto Rican cliches in the performing arts. Can you share a few examples of what you've experienced, what you've witnessed?
Well, you know, I think one common thing, and maybe calling it a cliche, I hope I don't insult it in any way. But like, you're not going to see the Puerto Rican flag in our production. We all know it. We all represent it. We all love it. But it's not something that you're going to see in our production. You're also, you know, are not going to hear the typical Puerto Rican catchphrases that you may hear, you know, all throughout. And not that there's anything wrong with that. But we really want to give you this abstract experience. We really want to get to the feeling. We really want to get to the sentiments. We don't want to just present something to you on a surface level where it's just kind of like, oh, here are the things that represent Puerto Rican-ness. It's more like we want you to feel in your soul. We want you to feel in your ears. We want you to feel in your eyes. what this experience is like for us. And so, not that it's wrong to have these cliches, like the Puerto Rican flag or what have you in the production. And if another production has it, that's all good. That's all fine. But I think with us, we really want to be able to, that absence of the flag, absence of these cliches, that the story is still going to be very strong in representing Puerto Rican-ness.
I can see what you're saying. I mean, I think it, and correct me if I'm not regurgitating this the correct way, but it's almost like challenging this narrative of what people define as being Puerto Rican. And just an example that I can share, I have a friend of mine that, we were talking about Puerto Rican culture, and what he said to me broke my heart, because I was like, this is Paseo Boricua, we have a Walk of Fame. These are like the biggest monuments to a flag in the world. Like, I was like super hyped, super pumped. And he was like, I don't really identify with this culture. And as we talked about this, the root of him not feeling a connection was because when he was younger, someone had told him because he didn't speak Spanish that he wasn't really Puerto Rican. So to me, like, I was like, damn, that sucks, man. Because, hey, look, I speak Spanglish. Like, I was born and raised in Chicago. I remember people telling me that I talk white. And, like, to hear that, it kind of makes you feel like, well, am I worthy of calling myself Puerto Rican? Am I worthy of being a part of this culture? Like, the way we kind of, and not saying that people are trying to hurt people's feelings, but I think the way we kind of put each other into a box doesn't do justice to the beauty, the diversity, the full spectrum of what it means to be Boricua. So am I capturing kind of what you were saying well there, Luis, or just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly?
Being Puerto Rican from Chicago is something that you're born into. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's anything that you get initiated into. I don't think that it's anything that you have to do, certainly, like, I have to follow these steps. And also at the same time, if you're not born into it, I don't think it's anything that you can do to be a Puerto Rican from Chicago. It's something that you already are. Whether you're a Republican, conservative Puerto Rican from Chicago, or you are a liberal, progressive Puerto Rican from Chicago, or you're just a working class person who hates politics, like most people in the world do, it's something that you're born with. And having to adhere to certain things, having to adhere to certain cultural norms doesn't necessarily make you more or less, but what it does do is that it makes you more educated and understanding your roots, hence the title of the production. So even though we don't use these cliches, I still had to learn about them, and I'm glad I did. And I still use them because these monuments, these flags, this language that we speak are all forms of educating ourselves about our history and about our culture. And I think that if you truly want to express yourself, even though you may very well be Puerto Rican, being Puerto Rican and feeling the validity in being able to express it are a couple of different things. Because you can be something, but you may not feel confident in being able to express that. And to be confident in anything, you need to know it. You need to understand it. That's where the confidence in that thing comes from, is to spend time. There is no substitute for spending time and energy with your culture, with your people, because it's all going to help you understand it. So I don't want to confuse the two, and saying that being something and also being able to express something is the same thing. Mm-hmm. And getting, to your comment about not understanding or not being able to speak Spanish and making you less of a Puerto Rican, you're just trading one colonizer's language for another colonizer's language, right? So it's not about learning Spanish. I think it's more about learning Puerto Rican, because there are certain words that are specifically Puerto Rican. So if you want to understand and get deeper to your roots, taking a Spanish class might not necessarily bring you closer to being Puerto Rican. Being in Puerto Rico and listening to Puerto Ricans learn and speak the specific language that they use that is specifically from Puerto Rico, that is what's going to tie you closer to your culture, not just learning a colonizer's language.
I do want to talk about, now that we looked at the past, looking ahead to the future, like, what do you foresee the next 50 years of the Cultural Center being? What do you see what's your vision for the next 50 years?
50% of our board is Afro-Puerto Rican right now, which I feel extremely proud of. 50% women. It's almost like perfect numbers, so in that sense. And I think that Ruiz Belvis is leaving, like right now there's a lot of advocacy going on, in which we are participating in statewide efforts to bring more money to the arts in Chicago. And there's an effort right now that you should know about, and you should write to your legislator and tell them that you're for this, is $500 million in investment in the arts sector of the whole $7.2 billion that's coming with the relief package after COVID. And we're trying to make the point that the arts are not a luxury, and that normal, regular people, everyday people work in the arts, and that we need the arts. Imagine a city like Chicago without artists. Imagine them going to New York or to LA or to San Francisco because they simply treat their artists better in terms of funding that's available to them and everything. So Segundo Ruiz Belvis will continue to do that advocacy. It's a huge part of what we need to do to defend the rights of artists of color, of our community, and above everything else, to deposit that seed in the youth. So make sure that, like the people, our elders like Ellie Samuel took time to teach the youth our traditions and the history of our music, we want to continue that. So that mentorship, apprenticeship level education, passing it on to them is very important. And of course, staying true to that mission more than ever of Afro-Puerto Rican arts and culture, and being a space that's welcoming to every culture, but is always from the perspective of Puerto Ricans. And if we can achieve that, I think that we have something in store for the next 50 years. And it's important that we keep people honest, that if the investments are not the same in Hermosa as they should be, and when you compare the resources that are going to other communities, we're not getting what we should be getting as Puerto Ricans. That's something that we should voice, and we should give it our all. So I think that's our vision, is to continue being a flagship organization for Puerto Ricans, but make sure that we build a strong foundation for future generations.
Doors closing.
Local media outlets are essential. In 2020, as communities, businesses, and citizens came to terms with a pandemic that disrupted the flow of daily life, the need for accurate local information escalated. Information including which businesses were open, which were closed, where to get tested and vaccinated. When media organizations closed their newsrooms and went remote, the reporting did not stop. They held local government accountable, documented historic moments for social justice, shared the humanity behind tragedy. Meanwhile, the funding for that work was drying up. Businesses whose ads helped support the media were closed. Revenue disappeared. Donating today at SaveChicagoMedia.org can ensure your local newsroom continues reporting the stories that matter despite the current economy. Investing in local media is funding your community. Give today and help us do the work that matters. Donate now at SaveChicagoMedia.org.
Where is your go-to place for a good Puerto Rican dish? And anybody can take that one. Actually, you know what? Let's jump around. Luis, let's start with you. Maria, and then Omar will come back to you.
Oh, my grandmother's kitchen. No. I know that's probably not a fair one.
Right? Everybody listening would say that.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna have to go to the South Side. I'm gonna have to go with the South Side and show some love to Jibarito Stop in Pilsen on 18th Street. I love their rice and beans. I love the tostones, but particularly I like their yuca fries. I think there's something exceptional. So I'm gonna go with Jibarito style. Can I give a couple of honorable mentions?
Of course, go for it.
I want to give a shout out to Nelly's for their breakfast buffet. I think is my favorite spot to be on a Sunday. It's usually where I wind up. Their avena de coco is probably the best I've ever had. I really dig that spot. And I really like Ponce restaurant. Ponce restaurant was actually the home of an open mic, one of the few poetry open mics on the northwest side of Chicago that catered to the Latinx culture. So I want to give them a shout out too.
Shout out to Ponce, shout out to Nelly's, some of the best avena de coco. I will co-sign that. Sometimes I just think about getting the buffet just to have an endless access to that avena de coco.
Oh yeah.
Super cool. Okay, Maria, what about you? Favorite spot to eat Puerto Rican food?
I will have an interesting perspective because I am now vegetarian going almost on 2 years now. And let me tell you, it's been very hard as a vegetarian Puerto Rican because of course I love Puerto Rican food and it's very difficult. But Casa Yari has almost, I think, everything on their menu. They have a vegan and vegetarian option, which is amazing for me because I get to eat my Puerto Rican food. They have I love jibaritos, and they have a really nice jackfruit jibarito, which I love. They're pretty much the only Puerto Rican restaurant that I know that has veggie options. Otherwise, I'm just going to be eating rice and beans and maduros. But when I wasn't vegetarian, Jibaritos y Más, their jibaritos and their rice it's so delicious. Oh my God, it's so juicy. And their portion sizes, they just give you so much. I can never finish it all. And also Ponce. I used to live a block away from Ponce when I was younger, and I would just walk over there with a few bucks, and the alcapurrias were just $1. And so I would just get a bunch of alcapurrias. So, that's where I went when I was a kid. When I went to Puerto Rico, I think it's called La Alcapurria Quema in Santurce. And they have a vegetarian alcapurria, and I was in heaven because I have not had a vegetarian alcapurria. I don't think anywhere in Chicago has them that I know of. So if anybody knows of a place that has them, or if somebody's listening out there, make me a vegetarian alcapurria. I would love you forever.
Maria, you are speaking my language because I am also on the hunt for a vegetarian or even a vegan alcapurria. My wife and I were in El Yunque not too long ago, and they have, I want to say it's called El Yunque Treehouse, and they had vegan alcapurrias on the menu, and I was like, heck yeah, sign me up. I'm down. I'm in the rainforest, and I can eat a vegan alcapurria. I've never thought I'd be in this spot. And I ordered it, and they said they're out. I didn't know that the demand for vegan alcapurrias was that expansive on La Isla, but I guess it is. So there's more Puerto Ricanos out there like you and I. But also, yeah, shout out to Ponce, shout out to Casa Yari. My wife and I, this is gonna sound really bad, but with the pandemic and the seating limit, my wife and I were actually able to get a seat at Casa Yari, which was incredible because for anybody listening that hasn't been to Casa Yari, I think it's some of the best food, but it's a small space, so it's very hard to get a reservation. I want to say it's reservation only. So I actually during the pandemic had my first experience there, and I was blown away. I thought it was really good. Anyway, Omar, what about you?
Thank you. Ya me robaron 2 o 3. Eso es lo que le pasa al que va último. I'm a big fan of Casa Yari. Actually, their catering are Rita Moreno event.
Okay.
I gotta give a shout out, even though he doesn't have a restaurant, to Mr. Roberto Perez of Urban Pilon, who is teaching online cooking classes at Ruiz Belvis, which I forgot to mention before. Recorrido Isleño, and we are teaching everybody teaching everybody how to cook macabeo, which is a fritura from Trujillo Alto. It's made with green bananas instead of plantain, which is really interesting. And you can stuff it with whatever you want. So there you go. You can learn how to make macabeos with us on Tuesday with Mr. Roberto Perez from Urban Pilon. So a shout out to him for doing, actually, he is very concerned about bringing healthy Puerto Rican cuisine, even though this particular one, it will be fried, but it's okay. It'll still be good. And then the other thing is, I am a big fan of Café Central as well. I have to say I haven't been in a long time, but that was one of my favorite places to go when I first moved to Chicago. And it's probably one of the oldest Puerto Rican, longest standing, it's probably the longest standing Puerto Rican restaurant in Chicago. Café Central, they have pretty good carne guisada. Sorry about, those that are vegetarians. But I'm a big fan of their carne guisada. And of course, Casa Yari, I would eat every single thing on the menu.
Shout out to Café Central. Man, Ponce's getting a lot of love on this call. I dig it. All for it. Awesome choices, everybody. Now, what are you most obsessed with today? It can be related, unrelated to Puerto Rican culture. What are you obsessed with?
It's going to sound kind of repetitive, but I'm very excited about what's to come at this very important historic moment. So I'm very obsessed with living the moment of this reopening for the arts. That is what is taking a lot of my attention these days, is how can I make sure that I contribute so that the artistic scene in Chicago can recompose itself after such a huge blow. So I'm obsessed, like I'm in all the committees, like right now I'm in the Cultural Advisory Committee for the city. I am working actively with Arts Alliance Illinois in the advocacy efforts. I'm applying for all the grants for reopening so that we are there and we can, reap the benefits of this redistribution of funding that's going to happen. So I'm obsessed about bringing quality arts and culture to our community and living the historic moment. And living the historic moment of that is going to be the anniversary of the killing of George Floyd and of the uprisings. So living the moment and feeling the weight of responsibility of the history of the center and propelling it to the next 50 years.
Maria, what about you?
Well, right now, I'm still working from home. So I've become obsessed with my little plantitas. I need some life in here. I'm just here by myself all day. So they give me some life. I love nature. I love being outdoors and just, I love hiking and I love all of those things, being by the ocean. We can't do those things really here in Chicago so much. We can only do like 3 months out of the year. So my way of kind of bringing in the nature to my home, I'm obsessed now. Every morning I go and tend to my little plantitas, and I have to try not to buy more because I'm still a beginner. So I'm getting, the easy ones. So I'm like, let me figure out how to do this before I get a bunch and spend all this money and then kill them all. But we have a little community garden that I'm excited to put some little vegetables in too and see how that goes. So wish me luck for that because I've never done it before. Hopefully we can make a little salad out of it or something.
I love hearing about all the new plant parents in the pandemic. Like people have gone hard for plant life. I'm here for it. I love it. Luis, what about you? What are you most obsessed with?
The Paseo podcast, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I can't get enough of it. I go to sleep to it. I wake up to it. I'm taking a shower to it. I'm cutting my vegetables to it.
I'm gonna make you record a commercial for us.
Yeah. I really dig it. But besides the Paseo podcast, I'm actually really obsessed with these two musical groups that are from Puerto Rico. And I think it kind of bounces off the conversation that we were talking about things that are stereotypically Puerto Rican or not. Los Walters and Buscabulla, which, I actually started listening to them before I even knew that they were Puerto Rican. I actually got introduced to them by some Mexican homies, and we're like, hey, man, listen to this music. It's really cool. Los Walters, I remember vividly actually listening to them in a bar late at night and being like, man, who are these people, And I was really digging the music. But for anybody who's familiar with the music, it's not your typical, salsa, merengue. It's not reggaeton. It's not something that people would automatically associate from the island, but they're very Puerto Rican. They're from the island, but the music is not something that I think people would automatically associate that is from the island, and I love it. I love jamming out to them, so I'm really obsessing over them right now.
Great sharing, everybody. I appreciate y'all sharing what you're obsessed with today. How can people keep up with you?
Yeah, you can follow Raíces to Roots on Instagram and Facebook at Raíces to Roots. And you can also follow me personally. I have a few personal dance pages. So you can follow me at María Luisa Dance. And then you can go to my website to see some of my work, marialuisadance.com.
You could check me out on Instagram at Logan Lou Poetry. Lou's just spelled L-U, to see about some of the other work that I'm doing in addition to Raíces to Roots.
Omar, how about you? How can our audience keep up with you after this episode?
You can follow us at Segundo Ruiz Belvis Cultural Center on Facebook, at Segundo Ruiz Belvis for Instagram. And our website is srbcc.org or segundoruizbelvis.org. However you want to type it in, it's still going to take you to the same place. But for the ones that can't pronounce that long name, we made it real easy for you, srbcc.org.
Okay, Omar Torres Kortright, Executive Director of the Segundo Ruiz Belvis Cultural Center. Oh my gosh, it's not even a long name, and I'm like out of breath, but it's been such a good conversation. And Luis, Tubens, and María Luisa-Torres, co-creators of Raíces to Roots. Really appreciate all of you being on the Paseo podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a thrill.
Doors closing.
Los medios de comunicación locales son esenciales. En 2020, cuando las comunidades, las empresas y los ciudadanos se enfrentaron a una pandemia que interrumpió el flujo de la vida cotidiana, aumentó la necesidad de información local precisa. Información que incluyera qué negocios estaban abiertos, cuáles cerrados, dónde hacerse las pruebas, dónde encontrar ayuda. Pero cuando los medios de comunicación cerraron sus redacciones y se alejaron, la información no se detuvo. Exigieron responsabilidades al gobierno local, documentaron momentos históricos para la justicia social, compartieron la humanidad detrás de la tragedia. Mientras tanto, la financiación de ese trabajo se estaba agotando. Las empresas cuyos anuncios ayudaban a sostener los medios de comunicación cerraron o se paralizaron. Los ingresos desaparecieron. Donar hoy en SaveChicagoMedia.org puede garantizar que su redacción local siga informando de las historias que importan a pesar de la economía actual. Invertir en los medios de comunicación locales es financiar tu comunidad. Dona hoy para ayudarnos a hacer el trabajo que importa. Dona ahora en SaveChicagoMedia.org.